that was giving me the orders, I have the clearance. Can I please ask you, just tell me one thing what you guys are making down there? I won't tell anybody, just tell me one thing. And he thought for a minute, he goes, we have an earthquake machine down there. I said, does it explode? He goes, no. It causes earthquakes. And it's a combination of the Army and the Air Force HARP. When we have designed it, we can cause one anywhere, but we're here where there's a lot of fault lines, and we can regulate the intensity. And I said, you can't do them rocks slip. He goes, we have people not from this world here that can. I said, really? And he said, we also have clones. I really didn't. I knew the clone meant, but I said, what do you mean by that? We have children, we have people here that look exactly alike, down to the freckle and last hair on their body. And we can make 100 of them or one of them off of an original body. Is the original body alive? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The dead bodies are suspended in a fluid with all kinds of lines up to their head. And we keep them alive only to use the brain, even though they can't function. The brain is a memory chip that retains information, and we are learning how to extract it. And I shook my head and I said, that's enough. I said, what do you want me to do with this colonel? He goes, he has the clearance, but we didn't want him up here, so we are going to let him up here and not show him everything. He already knows about the alien agenda, so that's where we're going to take him. And he's going to have his wife, and they're going to be coming up in a Cadillac. It'll be a pearl-colored one. And there's going to be a light. You know where the light is? I go, yeah. It's about two clicks away from where the entrance is. When he comes, that's where we tell you when it's green, it's okay. When it's yellow, you look at it and report to us too and tell us what you see. But if it's red, you shoot to kill the minute you see the first thing coming around that corner. I said, okay. So I sat there and waited.
So what was the thing turning green, yellow, or red?
It was just like a street light. And what it was because there was more than one sniper, like I told you these days. And at this base, just like S4, not Area 51, but S4, we knew nobody's allowed up there. Now, you see some civilian driving up there, you know, no way, you're not getting in there. But so the red, white, and green. So, but they had the visitors that came that were high-ranking or in Congress or something. They were allowed to come in there, and the green light meant that let this car go. It's okay. Don't even have to worry about it. The yellow light meant when it was on, they were everywhere. When the yellow light was on, they want us to look through our scope and report what we see to confirm what they know. And then they would either turn it green or red. If it was red, that means that the next car, I was at a place at about 1,100 to 1,200 yards away. There was a wide curve there. That's all I could see was that curve. And it went almost in a circle. We used to call them butt-kissing curves. Came up a hill and around this way here to the entrance. If it's red, the next thing, no matter what it is, even if it's an accident, because you're allowed to shoot anybody, you kill. And I want every sniper, 6 snipers in your area. And I better find 6 holes. You know, and they better be dead, and there better be 6 bullets shot. Okay. So they come around there, and finally, the green light came on. And, oh yeah, and before I tell you that, there's a strobe light that comes on first to let you know that something's approaching. And then when it passes the, I guess, laser going across the road, they said it what color the light's going to be. And it turned green, and I knew it was that colonel. He said the colonel had gray hair, and he's old, and his wife was young and pretty good looking in her 30s. He's about 60. And I looked, and she was better than good looking. I said, yeah, that's them, so I didn't worry about having green light. And so I decided I was going to climb up in a tree, because if I climbed up in the tree that was by me, I could see the entrance. I could see the whole base.
Was this daytime or?
Daytime. I could see the base, pretty much. The second building from the entrance was the most top secret. Why they did that, I guess it's, you know how the obvious sometimes is the thing that gets you? And I guess that's what they did, because I always thought, you know, if it was going to be something that secret, they'd put it way somewhere else. But the second building, I just knew, I don't know what they were doing there. It was huge. I swear it was huge. I'll bet it was a mile by a mile building, metal building. And the doors on it, they had one set, it had all kinds of doors in the front, but it had one set of doors that would open up the whole front, and it took a hydraulic system with 13,000 pounds of pressure on the cylinders to open that door, so that just tell you how big it was. It folded. So I climbed up in that tree. We had things that we went like this, and they locked in our boots, and they were hooked so we could put them in the tree. I got up in that tree and got comfortable and sat down, and I watched. The colonel stopped the second building. I thought, this is cool. But what was even cooler is the doors were opening. I looked at, I only knew of one. I couldn't see the other snipers but one. I looked at him, and he was on the ground, and I went, you know, it's going like this, and it's going. He seen me, and I went. And he climbed the tree, and he goes, we watched intently. First, before we seen the clones, we seen two grays. Now, I'd seen him, but the other guy didn't. He fell out of the tree.
The worker grays or the tall grays?
I don't know. This were about 5 feet, 6 feet tall.
They were the tall ones.
Is that tall ones? I just don't know work or tall. I just, from that distance, unless there was two of them, sometimes there's something to compare it to. You wouldn't be able to tell.
So what did the grays look like?
They just had, like you see on TV, and that, the bug eyes, but that's a suit.
But where were they?
They walked out, the door opened, and there was a couple military personnel, and they had black squares over their rank. But I know they had to be at least, in Black Ops, lieutenant colonels and above were the only ones that could have the kind of top secret needed to go in there. And the NCOs, there were some NCOs that were allowed in there, but officers weren't. And I can't understand that, but that's because NCOs are like worker bees. They're expendable, and they're dime a dozen get any of them. But they had to have high clearance, and they would kill you. They were good. But I seen them come out with two of the guys, and I want you to know, and everybody know, that the bug eyes and stuff is a suit. It's not them. It's a suit. I don't know if it's because of our atmosphere or what, but it's a suit. That's not their real eyes.
Have you seen them not in the suit?
Yeah.
What do they look like when the suits?
I seen them when they keep them in jail. I seen one in jail, inside of a jail cell, and without a suit, and it had bigger eyes, but they're round like this, and he was pacing back and forth. And I went on YouTube and seen a picture of it, and how they got that I don't know, and I don't want to know, but a glimpse of it. Daniel Ott has it. Daniel Ott's where I seen it. And when
wait. You saw this from Daniel Ott, or you saw this actually in a jail?
I seen one actually not in a jail from a long distance, but just for a little, just for a minute minute. And so I had to decipher real quick, and the other guy told me, because he could see it longer than I could, it was one of the aliens with no suit on. And when they opened the door, there was hundreds of suits, and that's when I found out. I said, and they were different color ones. I said, I'll be daggum. I always thought that was the alien. It is not. Those big eyes do a lot of things. I heard there's weaponry in them.
So you saw a lot of suits when they opened?
Yeah, there was a whole lot of suits hanging. And there was weird craft in there. And I know that they were saucers. But you know what they were doing in there? And I'll tell you about the clones, but what they were doing in there, why the UFOs, this colonel came up because he was wanting to know why so much every night. That was a repair station for UFOs, for a certain kind that came out of the water. They were triangle. They didn't get bigger or smaller, and that's the only kind of craft I've seen coming in and out of there. The other craft that I seen in there, were our military fighter planes. But I did see one fighter plane that had the most unusual weapon I ever seen. I'd have to draw it to explain it. It looked like an overgrown tomahawk, but it was real ugly looking, like an A-10. It was an ugly looking thing. But it was I don't know what kind of weapon it was, but I knew it was.
So you climbed up in a tree, and the colonel drove up in his car?
In a car, in his civilian clothes. They gave me the green light, and they walked up there. But he must have been some kind of top dog, in the White House or something because he got to go into that second building. And I climbed that tree many a times. And the other guy said he'd been there for going on his 4th year. And he's never seen that door open.
When the door, is that the door that when you looked in you saw the alien suits?
Yeah. And you have to use your scope, and we were so lucky because the scopes that we had back then were infrared, night vision, but what we liked about them, they were 60 power. One I got like here's 9 power. When I used sniping, most sniper guns, the first gun I had was only 9 power sniping. I could still hit 1,000 yards. These 60 powers were great, man. You could read name tags. And that was close. 1,000 yards with 60 power. That was like being on top of them. And so we could see them. And I was watching the general, and I told the guy, I said, watch the general and look for expressions on their face, and you won't be able to see. Well, I couldn't lip sync because of him. And I had a feeling they knew I was up there, that they knew we were up there. But they weren't going to do anything because I seen one officer, 2 officers that were greeting him went to 2, and then the 2 grays went back in because they kept going like this, look, you know, right at us.
The grays?
No, the 2 officers. But there was no way they could see us because the foliage was just so thick, and we were watching them. I actually took and picked leaves up so thick it made myself a little square window like to look out of, or I could shoot at. And I know they couldn't see me, but they either had that intuition or they had something that told us we were watching. But he kept going like this, and he wasn't doing it because he wanted us down, because he knew we could all lip read or he would have said something. I guess it was just funny feeling being watched. So I heard the guy go, and I read his lips, and the officer said, it'll just be a few more minutes. Just wait right here. Ma'am, would you like some water or something to drink? She goes, I'll take a glass of wine. She got a glass of wine. You, sir? I'd like to have a cigar. And I could even read the cigar box. They were Cuban cigars. And I know that they send them to the president. You know. So the president, when you see a Cuban cigar, this is just an assumption I make. I always made the assumption wherever I've seen a Cuban cigar that they either knew the president or he had been there. He gave me gifts. Well.
Now this was in the daytime or at nighttime?
Daytime. This was about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Because I think the other time you told it.
I've seen him plenty of times, a day and night, and I'm just getting in greater detail, and I happen to think about some of this too because I want to be accurate.
Then you must have seen him another time at night.
I've seen him on
where you said a lieutenant was going to give you a signal, and at that time was at night.
Yeah, and I seen him at several different places. I've seen him so many times. It would take me hours to tell you what I've seen.
What, the clones?
Yeah, but this was the most extravagant display I've ever seen, and it was scary. Anyway, they brought like a picnic table out there, and they were sitting out there, and one of the officers smoked a cigarette, he smoked a cigar, and they were drinking wine, and then food was brought out there. And then I guess it was time, and he said, they're coming. They all stood up, and they were looking in there, and these beautiful Playboy centerfold-looking type girls came out dressed in the same uniform. All of them looked the same. And we were making fun, saying, if a man was to do bigamy, you know, or whatever they call that.
Polygamy.
Polygamy, more than one wife, that'd be the way to do it because they were, it's one of them things where, boy, I wish I was drunk so I could see 24 of you. And anyway, they all looked the same. And they stood there, and they didn't blink or move or shift their eyes or anything. And they were human.
How many of them were there?
12. They were human. But they looked alike, and 3 men came out briefly and went back in, and they looked alike. And all of them, including the women, had blonde hair and blue eyes, like an Aryan race. But I'll never forget the beauty. It was awestruck beauty, and I have never ever seen, to this day, of women or a woman that would captivate you with beauty like those. And I guess that was part of their skill, you know. I mean, you had to hesitate if you seen one. So I seen him talking, and I thought, well, what are they doing? They're just standing there. And he was looking at him, and you could tell in his face he was well pleased. So now I'm starting to think, well, this guy's part of the program. He had to be. And I couldn't read the lips of the guy, but he was giving them an order. So I just had to wait, and one of them stepped out, raised the camera so I can stand up. And she stepped out of line, clearly, and they all had a 45 in their holster. And she turned and looked at the other one, and they were smiling. And then I lip-synced. He said, shoot her. And she pulled out her gun. The other one was still smiling, and she shot her. And real blood and brains and everything flew at the back of her head, and she went back in line. Now, don't ever ask me how it works or nothing, because I don't want to know. But I'll tell you what, it scared the life out of me. Because here's the question that it raised in us. Who are we talking to when we're talking to them? Are we talking to them? Because about 8 months later, we seen 4 guys that looked alike, blonde hair and blue eyes, and he got shot in the chest, and blue came out, and the bullet exited, and nothing else came out with it. But my buddy, I didn't see it, but my buddy said he seen sparks come out the back. I don't have a clue what them guys were.
Did you see the blue come out?
Yeah, I seen the blue, because they had white uniforms on.
Blue blood?
Yeah, I don't know. It looked like hydraulic fluid to me. But, I mean, now, I just seen it. Don't know anything about it. So, what would you do if you seen something like that? I mean, if you even acted like it freaked you out, or you were going to tell, or made them suspicious or scared, you were going to get killed. That's it. You had to sign waivers every place you went. And every place had a catch-22. Because when they had me at Area 51, they sent me here. You slowly got debriefed. And what happened is you eventually think you're never getting out, because it's like, I thought I was supposed to get out over there. Well, this is the one. And so many months there, then you had to sign another one. And I at the beginning, think I was never going to get out. So that's why it scared me, because it raised the question, who am I really talking with? Am I talking to my commander or a clone? Am I talking to a man that if he threatens me, it doesn't matter if I shoot him or not? That's a scary thought. Okay. So who's in control?
Yeah, it's hard question to answer.
So if they can do that, and he didn't die, he's still standing there. There was no death with him. He's still standing up.
See, then what happened? Did he walk away? Or?
They all walked away.
Even the guy that got shot?
Even the guy that got shot. That's the scary part. Who's in control of the world? The machine. That gave you the very possibility that a machine could, if programmed right, could turn on you. Or if it had an open chip that learned, like voice recognition, that learned its things, that they could take over and kill humanity. That's what we were thinking. And it was a very serious topic for us.
Us being the snipers?
Yeah, the other guy. And you weren't supposed to be with each other, but we had a way to do it. Because when you took a leak, you had to hang a red chip on the tree, because wherever you were at, it was a regular spot. It wasn't like you couldn't roam. You had a red chip for you had to pee. If you fell and got hurt, it was a real bright orange one. Hey, guys, watching it. So when we put the red chip, we had to set our gun down, and we'd run as hard as we could to each other and talk briefly. And when I come up, there's a little microphone there, and he said, what were you doing there? He's down there an awful long time. I said, I had to take a shit. All right. Get back to work. You know, and the other guy says, what do you think? We've got to hurry. I said, I'm afraid machines are fixing to take over the world. Could you believe that? He goes, I'll never believe it. I'll never believe it. He said, I am going to talk myself if I have to go to a hypnotist and get that erased from my mind. I'll never believe that.
Believe the clones, or believe the one that got shot? Or
believe that what we seen, that the clone got shot and walked off. And it was a real gun, because it kicked. You just know. There's things in when you're in the military, you know. You don't have to see.
Well, who shot this clone?
Another clone.
Well, wait. The women came out, and one of the women clones shot another woman clone. Mm-hmm. But I thought you said these were 3 guys.
Right, 4.
4 guys?
Mm-hmm. I might have accidentally said 3, but there's 4. And he was told, I guess, the same orders, and he turned around and shot a clone. The problem being, doesn't matter about that, the problem scares us. There's, whether it's a human or a machine, worse if it's a machine, it obeyed orders. If it's a human, then it had no soul. How could it? You can't obey an order like that.
Well, how can you if you're a human, how can you get shot like that and walk away?
Yeah, but I'm talking about just like the girls. That's a scary thought. That girl died, you know. I mean, and I know that was human. So, and the other ones that were standing next to him never shifted their eyes, and they blinked once in a while, but not because they were scared. But the gunshot didn't make anybody jump, because, you know, that does. You know, even when I'm shooting, when I shoot, it does make you jump when somebody's shooting. And from our vantage point, this is all we could see. And so there was no explanation, so we had to figure it out. So this is the way I figured. This is a bad situation, worse than war or anything we've seen, even though it was what it was, controlled, because of what could become of this. The machines could learn and not, I'm sure you could eventually disable it, you know, and take several hits and walk away. But what about the humans? Did they have a soul or not? Because nobody made a face, they all smiled, and they killed that, blew that girl away. So if they were super soldiers, I mean, what are we coming to? And it brought a million questions, to the point that when I was sitting there, I was in tears, not openly crying, but tears running down my face because I was scared. And I looked at him, and he had the tears running down his face. Only his face he was crying, and it was because, man, it was like being in 1940 and seeing the year 2090. I don't want to see that, like that movie Big Brother. And all I could think about was that movie Big Brother, about how everybody had to do the same things, the same food, no fish, no hunting, no free will, nothing. And that's what it's leading to. And when I left that base, I never told nobody about it. Never. And my cousin was stationed there as a captain in the Marines. I never told him. He doesn't even know that I was there. I mean, he wasn't there at the same time. But I'm not gonna tell him. I am not gonna tell him. He'll never see this CD.
Okay, when we started, you said you'd seen a couple of clone occasions. Can you tell us about another one? Or?
I seen some black clones.
Where was that?
At Area 51.
And
let me say, check this out. The black clones, they had lined up, and they hit one of them with a car, and he got back up on purpose. I seen the displays. And there's some of them, I don't remember detail, because I'm going to be just straight up honest with you what I did. There were some things that I started to see and completely turned my head, because I'm a human being, and even if I didn't believe in God, I had morals, and let me tell you something. When evil strikes somebody that has no belief in God, and they know and can feel the evil, imagine how evil that really is. Really. I can't really explain to you the feelings. Feelings can't be explained. But I do know now why God said to Master, not reacting. Because it would have been better off if I would have looked away and acted normal and didn't think about it. But I hope they didn't see me going like this. And I actually, when I left the military permanently, they put me on Valium. And for years, I had a shaking problem like this. Like somebody had too much caffeine. For years. I had panic attacks 5-6 times a day. I had nightmares every night, sleepwalking, every night.
After you got out or during?
After I got out, I was a scared puppy, and I am so angry over this. I am so angry of what the world has done to me. You know why? It would be one thing if people had a little compassion on you, but they don't. They call you liars, and they don't care because they didn't see it. It didn't happen to them. And you know what? Most people watching this right now, this is what you're going to say. You're going to be sitting in a chair just like this. It can't happen to me because I'm an American. It can't happen here because this is America. And the government will take care of it because we pay them to do that. No, you pay them so they can do pleasure cruises. The Lord says in the end times they'll invent ways to evil. And I think that what real evil is they've done so much evil that they're bored with it and they're inventing evil, more different things. Because God said, and then it says not only do they do the same things, but they also approve of those who practice it. But remember, it says they were God-haters, gossipers, inventors of evil. They invented new evil.
The black clones at Area 51, give us a little more detail on those and how you knew they were black.
That's only a few minute thing, and they were black guys with short
You were
cut hair.
out in the field, or
Not in the field.
or were you underground?
I was just walking around out in the field. I was in the rock.
Okay.
And what I was actually looking for was rattlesnakes. Because we had a 45, but we had 22. Or we could carry a 357 with snake shot. We were allowed to kill snakes and stuff. And you could tell the difference in the distance between the shot of a high-powered rifle and that. And I was looking for snakes to kill. Because I didn't want to sit there if you felt dozed off and wake up. Because it was loaded with snakes in there, rocks, rattlesnakes. But I seen the guy get hit. I turned my head and said, didn't happen. And I just went on about my business. And there's so much that I could have probably learned and told. I already know too much. But there's so much more. I turned my head to so much stuff. That's what made me guilty. I carry this guilt complex, and I know better than that. I am not guilty. I'm convicted. Conviction from God of that and been forgiven. But you've got to forgive yourself, and I don't think I have all the way yet. Because I don't know what purpose is there in making clones? If they're trying to depopulate the earth, what are they doing making more? I think they're just trying to see if they can be God. Because I've seen things that defy anything you can see. Really, you know that a flying saucer defies anything you ever seen, but you ain't seen one. Land and take off. Wait till you see that. Wait till you see it. It's like seeing murder on TV, and it's just, cool watching a cop movie. But wait till somebody gets blown away in front of you and their brain matter splatters all over your face. It's a different story. To actually see living material in their heart laying on the ground pumping still a couple times, it's just different.
Do you want to talk about the reptilians that you saw the first time?
Well, that's a good, quick story I could tell about. I was sitting there in...
Where were you?
Area 51, or S4. This was S4
Were
area.
you underground?
On top of the ground. And there was tremors there all the time. And I knew it. And that's what they told us. And I think that they were telling the truth because there was tremors there. It was close to, it was. Civilians knew it. And it would just... So I even felt the full blast of an earthquake before, but one day we were sitting there, and I was eating a sandwich, and I'll never forget, I was leaning up against a rock, and I was thinking, I don't even remember what I was thinking that day, and I heard the biggest thump, and the whole ground shake back and forth 2 times like this. I thought, man, and it was a little bit of a delay, and I took my binoculars. I looked like this out there to see what I could see, and I watched at least a 2-mile diameter, perfectly round spot in the dirt sink about 6-10 feet, just drop. And then I seen there was compartmental, there was places that they could get out that had about this much sand on top of them. It was fake sand, but it blended into it, and you didn't really know where they were because they were the masters of deception. And I guess the devil or those demons that people call aliens and reptilians, I guess they showed them how to make these deceptive things. But the hatches looked like part of the landscape. And all of a sudden one opened, two of them came out and shook off just like dogs shake off water.
The audience doesn't know what the two were.
They were reptilians. They were, like in the movie V, they were human, but yet they were reptilians. And
okay, what is they were human, but they were reptilian?
They could shape-shift into anything they want. And here's a speculation of mine. I have no proof of it, but I believe that once you made that it was a rank. Now, I was told it was a rank. I believe that the reptilians were the only ones that could shapeshift into anything they wanted to be. I don't believe the Greys could have.
Okay, so
reptilians looked like humans.
So the ground shook. You look with your binoculars. You saw a couple of these things.
Yeah, after it sunk. When it sunk, I've seen nuclear tests above ground and below, and they were low-yield nuclear weapons, and this was way after the treaty. They're still doing it today. They're blowing them up.
And you sure it was two, or was it more than two?
It was two. And they shook off, and I looked, and they looked like aliens. They looked like lizards. They almost, when I first looked, I got so scared. They looked like Tyrannosaurus Rexes, but that's not what they really looked like. It just, when I seen what they were, my mind went wild. And then I pulled myself together and looked again, and they looked like a V, you know what I'm saying? And they had a tail, and don't ask me how long the tail was or dragged around, because I don't remember but I know they had a tail. And they were scaly looking, but they were real shiny too. Kind of real shiny, but they shook up the dust and stuff. And while they were walking away, it looked, because they were going like this to each other, and it looked like they were having a conversation or something, but a Jeep came by and got. Here's what got me. I knew immediately that was an atomic explosion. And what had actually happened is they tried to take an anti-gravity unit apart, and it exploded, and that's what happened. Well, my whole thing was, how did they stand it? Because a nuclear weapon gets, what, 10 million? Is it 10 million degrees? 10, 20 million degrees to do it. And I thought about Einstein for a minute, because Einstein said that if you could take a pin and put 10 million degrees on the end of a pin, and it was above ground more than a minute, it would vaporize the Earth. Well, how can they do that? I didn't learn until later from, just a couple of years ago, from an agent, Casbo, who told me that they knew they could dematerialize for 6 minutes, I believe it was, and they knew 6 minutes in advance when something was going to happen. But they were very tired, and it took all the energy out of them, and if they went beyond 6 minutes, they would die. And I said, explain that to me. He said, you've seen movies where the mummy or whatever, and they just turn to sand and fall down? And human, you stand there, and all of a sudden something's going to happen. Instead of running, he just turns into dust, and it falls to the ground. That's the way they did it. And I thought, I mean, and Casbo says, well, they're devils. What do you expect? He said, and then we had a conversation. He said, I mean, we've seen celestial things. We did. And, you know, God says in the Bible, they talk about celestial things that they have no knowledge about. It says that in the Bible. The man does. Well, we had no knowledge about them, and people talk about them that have no knowledge about them, that never seen them. And we seen them, had knowledge about them, and still don't know how they will operate. So the devil is complex.
What color were the reptilians?
Well, they were shiny, and did you ever see a blue-tailed lizard? Kind of like that color.
Blue?
Yeah, the back of their legs would have a blue color to it, and from their elbows right in here would be a blue. And they actually were, I don't know if it was chameleons or it was my eyes, but it looked like they would turn from not bright green, just a dull green or a dull red. They weren't nothing like I thought they would be, you know, like a giant lizard running out.
So they were green or red?
Yeah, both. I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know if it was chameleon or the way that they reflected, because I took lizard before and looked at them and they changed colors, you know. But they could shapeshift into anything, and they were dangerous, and the highest ranking humans in there obeyed them. Everybody obeyed them.
Okay. Have you ever actually seen them shapeshift?
Yeah, I seen one shapeshift to the table. I was trying to look at his feet, you know, to see.
Is that the Hall of Horrors story?
Yeah.
Do you want to go do that now or later?
We'll do that later, because I want to think. Casbolt hit me with that in spur of the moment, but I really want to sit and think for a little bit to tell you exactly what was in each chamber, because the most horrific thing that I could ever think of, each chamber was worse. I could not, there's not a movie
For
made.
the audience's sake, you're talking about when you were underground at Dulce in what's called the Hall of Horrors.
Oh, yeah. And I know that I was there, and because, what's that guy's name? He knows Alex good, and he's on the radio a lot. Anthony Hilder called me up, and he said, "Are you sure you weren't in MK Ultra?" And I said, "Man, I wasn't in MK Ultra." And he said, "Casbolt said you weren't either, but how does he know?" I said, "Well, that's between me and him, and he's never called me since." And I don't know who he was, but Anthony Hilder was his name. And Casbolt asked me, and he was good about it. He says, every time that we get nervous, we'll pray to Jesus. And we did. And we didn't use no hypnosis. He said, we'll regress our memory by just remembering, concentrating. And he was the one that made me realize what I had seen, and I really did. And he says, that does it for me. And I go, why? He said, because you just said the exact verbatim explanation of where you were and what you seen as 6 other guys that said they were there. Verbatim. You're not lying.
The Hall of Horrors
Yep.
at Dulce underground.
He says, you are not lying. They told me the story. If I would have turned on all of the audios on the same time, I'll bet you the words and voices match up. He really wouldn't. He was just telling me how close the stories were. He said, you guys were exactly telling the same story. Do you know any of these guys? No. The 2 of them were from Africa.
2 of the guys that told him. Let's go back on when you actually witnessed a human to reptilian or reptilian to human shapeshift.
Well, I was there, and we were in a room, and to this day I have no idea why I was brought down there, because they didn't need me. And I remember the guy, the scientist with the white robe on, got mad and said, is he a 27 group? And that means this is their IQ test. I don't know what a regular IQ test, you know, this was their IQ test that I took. I scored over 270 in it. They said that 1 out of 1,000 scored 250. I scored 270. So, was I an MK Ultra? I would say no, because I knew for a fact, because before this guy shapeshifted, he says, we don't like, you know, he told the guy that was with me, and the guy that was with me was a major general. He says, you know, we don't like to do the 270 groups, because, and the reason why was because we were smart and we weren't broke down by fear like the rest of them were. You know, all the other guys were always shaking all the time when they ate and everything, because they were broke down from fear, regular, normal guys. They were smart, but they weren't prodigies. And he says, and I said, well, can I ask you something? I'm going to ask. I've heard this 270 and 20. I want to know what it is. He goes, you're in a group of people that have brains that are above, and by far, above average. And we don't want to mess with that because we want to see how smart a natural man can get. And so you guys are the ones. And you may not know how to build the atomic bomb, but we could show you one time and you would retain that. But things that you don't want to see or scare you, you won't retain it. As a matter of fact, we could wipe your memory away from today, but we're not going to wipe your memory away. So if anybody ever asks you if you were brainwashed, say no. And that's when I stood up and I said, yes, I am. What do you mean? I've been brainwashed since the day I came in this effing place. That's why. Well, we haven't forced anything on you. Yes, you have. I can't get out of the military. I can't get out of anything. I don't like being down here. This is all fantasy to everybody else, and they want to be here, and they would love to see it. But I'm not one of them. I don't like to kill. I don't like to be a soldier. I don't like to be a tough guy. And I don't like what I'm seeing. And I don't like fame. And I'm not in it for glory or anything else.
When did you say this?
To all of them in that room. And they got quiet. And they looked at that sign.
Were they all human at that point?
Yeah. And they looked at the military, the general, and they looked at him and said, there's our point. And he said, well, he's all right, man. He goes, well, let's see if he's all right. And he shape-shifted into a reptilian. It only took, started slow. I started seeing it. And you know what it looks like? Did you ever watch a digital film, and if it's a storm coming, you'll see little squares popping in it? That's what it looks like. In their area, these little squares, like it's digital. You know.
Give us a little, back up just a little bit.
Okay, I was telling about this alien that shapeshifted, this demon that shapeshifted in front of me, who was a human, I thought. And as he was shapeshifting, it looked like...
Were you in a room, or where were you?
Yeah, I was in a room to the right. To the left of me was glass rooms, which I'm going to talk about later. There was literally, I believe, I didn't count them, but it was long. There was about 100 glass rooms, and in each one of them that I walked past was more gruesome than the other.
And this was at Dulce, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. And the last one had a child in it. And that's the only one I asked about. I said, what's he doing in there? He said, we let him out he'll eat everybody in the whole world and kill everything.
He'll eat everybody?
He'll kill everybody, kill everything.
A child.
I said, well, how do you feed it? Yeah, it was a child. All I seen was a poor kid. Now, I know it was demonic probably, but, they give you a sad look, and I was looking at the poor kid. He's trying to make me feel bad. He goes, that way we feed him is there's 3 or 4, I can't remember, 3 or 5. It was a bunch of chambers that were steel this thick that had hydraulic doors that they dropped the food in, and then the other one would drop it in, and it had to go through that many chambers because if he got out, that was the end of it all. And I said, does he have a soul? Yep. I says, you're in trouble when you open them chambers because a little bit of them's getting out every time because he's a demon. And I promise you that he could get out of there. Because you're not God. And I heard only thing that people that are not believers hear about is John 3:16 and the end of the world stories. And the only thing that I remember my mom talking about, some demons were so evil they had to be chained up in front of the angels of the Lord or somebody to be watched. So, is that, and you're not God, if there is one.
So you were underground Dulce, you saw this child in a chamber, and then what?
Yeah. Then he pushed a button, all the chambers went to where they could see all the things that were in there could see us, but we couldn't see them. It was like a tinted glass. You couldn't see it, and it went dark. Fluorescent lights are all down there. So we're sitting at this table, and they're talking about things, and I'm sitting there, and I am scratching my head. I'm really wondering why I'm here. And then it came to the question, why did you bring him? And now this guy knew who I was. I guess the general thought he was going to fool him, and I was available, and he grabbed me. He goes, "Is he a 27?" And the general got scared because I know, I watched the general, that guy already knew, like he knew, just knew some things about the future.
The guy asking the question, is he a 27? Was this the one that would shapeshift, or was this somebody else?
No, the shapeshifter that was a scientist asked the general why he brought me in here. Well, so everybody says, "Devil can read your thoughts." I was thinking on purpose. I was thinking, I'm going to pull his gun out in 2 seconds, and I'm going to blow his brains out. No, I'm going to blow them all out. They didn't know what I was thinking. They would have reacted to that. That's the only reason I did that. I wasn't really going to do it. I was just thinking that.
You were testing if they could read your mind.
But you know what they were doing? At the end of that hall, it was a dead-end concrete wall. But beautiful, naked women of the utmost beauty were coming out, walking past.
Coming out of the...
I don't know. I couldn't see, because when you went into the door, you couldn't see the end. It kind of... There's a window there, and you just couldn't see the end unless you stepped outside the door. I don't know if you could look real close to the window, but I was in the corner of the room. And I seen them, and I looked. He goes, "They're luscious, aren't they?" He says, "You can have any one of them right now, and they will screw you to death." That's what he told me.
You were still sitting at this table?
Yeah. I said, "They're not real." He goes, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Come here." He went like this, "Most you want to come in?" And she went in there and started robbing on me and stuff. She felt real. And I said, "They're holograms." He said, "How do you know they're holograms?" I said, "I can feel it like static shock, like electricity on me. They're not human." He goes, "You're right." He said, "But they can make you feel just when you could have sex with one, you would be just like a real woman. And we'll give them to you." And I said, "Where do they come from?" And he pulled out of a drawer and a glass table. I never seen anybody's table with a drawer. Had a wooden drawer on it. I don't know how it was mounted, if it was super glued or what, but it was there. But in a drawer, and he had a box about this big. He says, "I can get her and tell her to go in there, and you can take it home and have it forever."
He could have the woman go in the little box?
Yeah, and he'd give me the little box, and I could keep her forever. Every time I open the box, she'll come out. That's what he told me. I don't know if I could have done it or not.
Okay, well...
I didn't, but I said, no, I ain't doing that. Mm-mm.
Okay, but when did they shapeshift, and what did it look like?
He shapeshifted after he'd shoot the general, bring me down there. And then I asked the question, "What am I down here for?" And nobody ever did answer me. And then he finally was chewing that guy out, and he goes, "Well," and then the guy that was going to shapeshift said, "Well, let's see how he handles this." And I knew they were talking about me. They didn't say my name. And so I looked at him in the eyes, and I went, that's when I went, "What?" And then he started doing it. I seen these digital things. And I wasn't afraid, because I seen those women, and I knew they were holograms, and I said, "He's just a hologram." And so he came in there, and he was just, anyway, it was digital looking, but he turned reptilian, just like the ones that you see in V. And his clothes dissipated. They didn't tear off like in Hulk. You didn't take them off. They just dissipated and blended in. And he looked like something on V, that movie V. And I remember trying to look at his feet, because the glass was at a certain angle that the glare was so bad I couldn't see under it. And I was going like this, and so he went like this. He knew what I was trying to do, and so he went like this. And he had claws on his feet and clawed hands. And he says, "I could be anything I want to be." I said, "You mean anything living?" And he goes, "No. I could be a tree, a door. I could do anything. Just ask me." I said, "Well, my grandmother always told me to be afraid of the devil and not God, and I don't know which is which." And I said, and gave him the finger, and I said, "All of you, including you, General, can go to hell. You can get in trouble for that." I said, "Throw me out, please."